I got him. He's a bad guy because somebody else flying this big old thing, ugly thing, has told me he's a bad guy. Okay? Does that make sense? So then I got him locked up. I got the master arm switch on, and I pushed the red button. So I wish I had a red pen. We could have some fire. Off goes my missile. Okay. Now, if he's a Syrian pilot, he's already bailed out at this point.
Smart pilot.
Okay, the missile it left the airplane. It has a little inertial navigation system in it, and it left the airplane going, I want to go somewhere over Ogden. That's where I want to go. I want to just, yeah, somewhere around 25th Street. That's where I want to go. But I didn't know what it's really going after. The radar is still, which knows a lot of information that I can't talk about, but I talk about the basics. It knows how fast it's going. It knows which direction it's going. It knows what angle it's going. It knows a dog check. All right. So the radar is going, okay, I know what's going on out there. This little missile doesn't really know yet. He just knows I'm going to Ogden. I'm going to 25th Street. I don't know where I'm going to eat yet. That's where I'm going. And the radar is talking to the missile. The radar is saying, okay, go left a little bit. Okay, climb up a little bit. Go a little bit that way. Until, at some point in time, that I can't discuss, also depending on how fast we are, how far apart we are, the missile goes, I don't need you anymore. I don't need you anymore. Goodbye. I'm on my own. I have it. And that's how the advanced medium range air-to-air missile works. Okay. Let's suppose all of a sudden a bad guy shows up right here. And I go, yikes, I got to get out of here. And I go that way. And now my radar brakes lock on the airplane. The missile will still try to do the best it can with what it's got. Does that make sense? Okay. I don't think we need to sign any papers on that one. And also, at any time, I can terminate it. I can go, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't care about you anymore. I got a bigger problem over here. So. But that's why we fly, not with this big old ugly fish, but like most of the time we fly in kind of a container formation, 4 airplanes. So one guy can shoot some guy, and I'm shooting another guy, and the guy in the back's kind of keeping an eye on all of us. And then we start doing our maneuvers, and we usually the F-16 has a pretty impressive kill ratio. I think it's like 81 to nothing. 81 to nothing. What else can I tell you? What else do you want to know? Anybody else? Go ahead.
Any memorable missions from Desert Storm you can tell us? Flying Storms?
Okay, anybody read the Reader's Digest story about the Army guys that got caught just south of Baghdad late in the war? That's where I got my Distinguished Flying Cross. Okay? I was coming back from one of those missions up by Syria where we were just tooling around looking for scuds, and we didn't find any that night, so Pearl and I were going to cruise back over to the tanker and get some gas. And we went back over there, just kind of cruising down the Saudi border, so we had to get back over here, not down to UAE, but we had to get back to the King Fahd base. That's kind of over on the East Coast. We've been flying about 6 hours, covered our 45 minutes looking for the scuds, and then somebody replaced us. You know how that works. So, and AWAC said, "Hey, Wolf 2-1, contact ABCCC." And my old A-10 days, I know exactly what ABCCC stands for: Airborne Command and Control Communication. And that normally means rescue missions. King, their call sign, always normally King, so we know what they are, is typically in the rescue coordination business. So he says, I need for you to go up to here. He gave me some coordinates. I go, hey, we're on secure radios. I go, do you realize that's 30 miles south of Baghdad? He goes, yeah, we know where it is. I said, well, you better bring me another tanker. Okay, so Sweet Pearl and I go cruising up there, and I check in. King says, hey, contact the ground guy on this frequency. So I got a hold of this command sergeant major, U.S. Army. There's about 8 of them. And I talked to him for a little bit. I go, how you doing? What's your sit? He said, well, the guys on the left are in hand-to-hand combat, but they're winning. That was a direct quote. I got that on tape. And then he asked me, he says, well, when are you going to bomb something? I go, wait a minute, I got to find you first. I think they'll like have a pretty good idea where you are, because I don't want to kill you too. And so we couldn't find them. We just hit their GPS backpack was all shot up. And the funny thing what the Iraqis were doing, they were charging up the hill, fighting them a little bit, then running back down the hill. That had been going on better part of the all afternoon, and now it's about 11 o'clock at night-ish. He said, well, we're going to do something here pretty quick, and we're about to run out of ammunition. And I said, okay, well, I've got to find you first. So if you go back to my early A-10 days, I was a search and rescue pilot called a Sandy. I trained in procedures to find people on the ground. So what I did, I left Sweet Pearl up at 20,000 feet, talking to AWACS, and I went down to 5,000 feet, and I started going west. And I go, basically, can you hear me now? You're north of me, then I will turn south. You hear me now? You're east, you're west of us. I turn east. You slowly but surely narrow this down. You're right on top of me. I hit mark. That gives me puts coordinates into the computer, north-south coordinates, east-west type coordinates in here. And now when I fly around, I can aim my FLIR where I can see it at night. I can kind of see what's going on. Put the little diamond in the HUD. That's where he is. He goes, but we got to move again. So they took off moving. Oh, great. So they took off about another half click. We talked to them. We're really running out of ammunition. So I got to go in a little bit of a search pattern. But this time I said, hey, I'm going to do something when I get there too. I just got right over them and just lit the afterburner. Okay. The Iraqis kind of backed off when they saw that. They stopped. They stopped chasing a little bit. So, but in the end, though, they came back. So I'm going, I can't drop any munitions. These guys are too close to the friendly. So I got 2 Mark 84, 2,000-pound bombs. But with the Mark 84 that's parent mounted, you can go supersonic. Okay? So I said, I don't know what else to do. Sometimes just make noise. And the ground commander can seize the initiative, or the bad guys will leave. So I just rolled in, gave him a supersonic boom after I found him again. A concentrated supersonic boom is a highly effective noisemaker. When you do one of these like this, you might blow out some windows. You see what I'm saying? But if you aim it at something, it's pretty effective. I think the quote was something like, what was that? So I said, hang on, there's another one coming. So I just zoomed back up, did it again, and he goes, you're not going to believe this, but the Iraqis are getting their trucks and they're leaving. They brought the 2 H-60s helicopter, which had already been, most of all the southern Iraq's a desert. You could, nothing but camels and nomads out there. So we already had the H-60s way up into Iraq already anyway, waiting. But yeah, they drove off, got a truck, drove off, went in there and picked them up, and got to meet that guy later on. Really good guy. Gave me a coin. They were from Fort Bragg, obviously. He says, hey, listen, if you ever go to our bar, show them this coin, and you won't have to pay for anything. So that was my most memorable story. The rest were really pretty benign until we got to the highway at the end. That was a little bit intense, but most of the time I was up there running around at night trying to find something. Okay? Has anybody got anything? Talk to somebody. Hey, you know, the Joint Stars airplane, another one of those big fishy airplanes with big old radar on the side of it, they could see trucks moving, you know, and so they kind of give us an idea, hey, there's like 6 on the road over here, and we'd go try to find them with the radar. The radar will work in the air-to-air or the air-to-ground mode, both. It just matter which button you push. And go into ground mapping, or it'll go into GMT, ground moving target track. If anything's doing more than, remember, it can't say speed and ranges, a certain speed, it'll pick it up moving. And then you can lock onto it just like you lock onto an airplane. and they don't give you all the steering and the HUD, just center up the steering, let the bomb go, and it's already calculated based on that speed that the bomb needs to be out here this far in front, so that unless he stops, they're going to meet at the end. Let's see. The rest of, like I said, most of my sorties, I would say over half were droning around over by Syria looking for scuds. And I'll be honest with you, not with a lot of success. Sir?
Is there at some point in time as a pilot of a warfighter that you get overwhelmed with the amount of intelligence you have in that cockpit?
No, sir. Not really. No, I'm honest, I'm not. The F-16 is so, okay, the old F-4 and the A-7 and the A-10, some of them had an inertial navigation system, but you had to still do maps. You had to kind of keep up with where you were. There was still a pretty good navigation burden in those airplanes. Well, the F-16's got GPS and all that stuff in it. I mean, I know within 10 feet of where I am. So that whole navigation burden, I don't have to worry about it anymore. It's off my back. Does that make sense? So now I can concentrate on other things, like some of that intelligence, what the sensors are seeing. So there's things, the F-16 is go ahead. Go ahead, sir. You go. Okay. The F-16 is such a modern airplane that a lot of the things that the older pilots had to do, we don't have to do anymore. Does that make sense? So therefore, and we got all these whiz kids out here that have been playing Nintendo their whole life. That's all it is. We call it playing the piccolo. Sir?
Our security is improving all the time in the United States at the airports, but I kind of think that Al Qaeda just wants to get some attention again. Do you think they could sneak in through some small country and maybe hit one of our allies, like the House of Parliament or something like that?
Oh, sir. Let me just tell you this. I don't think it's a matter of we're going to get hit. It's a matter of time. Okay. And don't get me wrong, I do get to read the intelligence, and we're not going to sign any papers over this, okay? But we have put a serious schwack on them, okay? In a big way, financially and physically, all right? But that doesn't mean there's not 4 or 5 of them out there that are hatching something up right now that could probably do something. One of the things that makes our country so wonderful and great also makes us a little more vulnerable. I mean, we can turn this into a police state, you know, and probably have more security. But is anybody in this room willing to do that? I'm not. I'd rather be dead. Okay? So that's just not gonna be that way for me. So yeah, and you know, free countries like England have a lot of those freedoms too, so they're somewhat more vulnerable. Most of the Western democratic countries are vulnerable. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, and sometimes I think about a cruise out in the ocean. Are they protected? You know, you got 5,000 people on a cruiser, and they could just go into one of those.
Oh, yes, sir. Well, I mean, they hit the start. Remember, the Iraqis hit the start. The Yemenis hit the coal. I mean, they've been doing this for years. On about every 18-month cycle. Let's see, Kovar Towers, they did that one. Let's see, the Marine Barracks. You can just go back, and this has been going on for quite some time. They just upped the ante with 9/11, and I don't think they expected the reaction they got either. Sir?
Keep asking the same question. Maybe everybody's getting tired of it. You guys ought to know. What happens with the Iraqi Air Force?
Well, go back to Desert Storm 1.
They showed up a little bit there.
They showed up a little bit there, but the F-15s were just swacking them. I mean, I got a buddy who flies up a mountain home. They shot 2 of them down just before they get the wheels up. I mean, they're not good. They lack talent. Okay, so even if they'd gotten them airborne, you know, we shot every one of them down. I just think they realized that there was no way, so why do it? I mean, it's just go bury them. Maybe we can pull them out of there one of these days, but to bury them in sand, that's not going to work. Because I told you, these people are not smart. Yeah, I'm teasing there, of course. That country has some of the most brilliant people of that part of the world that have ever come out. Actually, Iraq has a unique history. You go way back. historically been where the most educated came from, where the most thoughtful thinking came from the Muslim world. Some of the best universities have always been in Iraq. It's just been this last 30 years or so, that this aberration, 40 years of Saddam Hussein, that the poor people have been suppressed. Does that make sense? They have, I mean, they've got some bad past like everybody, but if you look at the overall context of those people, that part of the world, it has represented some of the very, very best that the Arab world has ever had in science, math, education. Through no fault of their own, they've been stuck under a dictator. Yes, sir.
Did you interface with the Strategic Air Command on any of your offensive activity? B-52, for example, high altitude.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. We knew they were in the air tasking order, and you'd get these. Now everything's on PowerPoint. You know, you'd get these slides that you go, okay, the buffs are going to be here. You know, the F-16s are going this way. The F-18s are coming from the Kuwait over the water. So yeah, it was all deconflicted. Yeah,
Were they effective in what they did?
I'm sorry?
Were they effective in what they did?
Anytime a B-52 drops anything, it's usually correct. Especially on troops or barracks in an open field. The Iraqis, God bless them, like I said, they're pretty smart folks, but they're not real smart military-wise. Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Iraq. Well, you know, they went into Iraq. I mean, they went into Kuwait, and then what they basically did, they put 4 Republican Guard divisions like that. Okay? So when the war kicked off, my very first mission was against this division right here, the Medina division, and we dropped cluster munitions. Okay, lots and lots of cluster munitions. These guys are out in the open desert in tents, little pup tents and huts and whatever, their tanks, they're sleeping in their tanks, their APCs, blah, blah, but they're out in the open. So now, I'm up there dropping a couple of cluster munitions, a B-52's coming through there, what? 85 bombs? I don't know what they drop anymore. In Vietnam, they could carry up to 113, I think. And they had those outside, the racks on the outside. But I mean, can you imagine that rainstorm? We should call that be a Tritonol rainstorm. I mean, my gosh. I mean, to even remotely be under those conditions would be horrific. So, yeah, but they finally realized, hey, let the fighters go do something else. We were also going to Baghdad. You know, the fighters were. We couldn't bomb in downtown because we didn't have the laser-guided precision bombs like the stealth fighter did then. But we were bombing the Scud rocket motor facility south of Baghdad, well, we affectionately call them Nuke 1 and Nuke 2, the new power plant. Other industrial stuff on the periphery of Baghdad. The F-16s would go in there, like maybe like 68 of us at a time, just strung out for many, many miles, just constantly rolling in. So, sir?
This is backing up a little bit, but you said in the next 2 months you're only going to fly 3 times?
Good question. I wonder where you're going to pass it. All right. The little thing about retirement and medical stuff, you got to get taken care of. They didn't really operate on that finger right the last time, and they got to operate on this one again this time. This is an interesting thing. Has nothing to do with airplanes, but it's called Dupuytren's contraction. Has anybody ever heard of it? Okay, it's a rare disease of overproduction of collagen. And it only affects people who are direct descendants of or from northern Great Britain, and nobody knows why. But it creates that overproduction of collagen, creates these knots in the joints. You see it, they're forming up in here. My dad has had 3 surgeries. He's 79. Okay, so what happens is that knot forms and it starts to curl the finger back. If you don't eventually do something about it, they have to cut the finger off. Okay, and this one was locked up solid a year and a half ago. Does that make sense? They had to cut that knot out. This one, the knot's in the side, is still curling the finger back, but I still can use it, whereas I couldn't use it. So, it takes 5 weeks before you can fly again. I'm going terminal leave 2 April, so I'm getting the operation on 4 March, so I better have my pink like the last week of February.
Do you use that figure or your piccolo plan?
Perfect angle to use the fuel cutoff switch. And actually, they curl up real nice and still run a golf club. At least they're going in the right direction. So yeah, I'll probably face this like my dad the rest of my life. Although my wife says it keeps your face looking younger for a little bit longer.
They don't believe all that on like.
No, sir. As long as it's functional. You know what? Okay, now the airport's a little different. Let me tell you about the airline. This is going to make you feel real good. Little thing called the American Disabilities Act creeped into airline hiring. Very used to it. You couldn't get hired by the airlines unless everything in your whole body was perfect. Nowadays, FedEx has 3 pilots with only 1 eye. I can fly with as many as 2 digits missing. So they have, I mean, it is considerably different. All you got to do is get in that simulator, prove you can still do it. And it doesn't affect your ability to fly. And you're good to go. I just had my FAA physical. I'm trying to get hired by FedEx or UPS, maybe World Airways. It's not, they're not going to hire a lot this summer, but they might hire a few. And I'll try to get hired by them. But I mean, I just have my FAA Class 1 medical that you have to keep up. I got my airline transport stuff done, all that stuff is ready to go. And heck, the only thing you really got to do, they check your eyes. If you're talking to them, they're assuming you can hear. And give them a little sample so they can see if there's any drugs in your body. And that's the extent of the physical. Give me $125. So I don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, I got some problems here. I might want to be hired. All right. What else? Yes, sir.
You, not that it makes any difference to me that I think we went into Iraq for any reason was a good reason, but do you have any comments on the disappearance of the weapons of mass destruction?
No, sir. No, sir. Either they didn't ever exist or they've been moved. It just depends on which. I mean, think about it. I mean, the only reason we found those, y'all know the only reason we found the airplanes? What does wind do in the desert? It blows sand and rain. One day they weren't there. Next day you go, where did these airplanes come from?
Somebody knows they did cover all that stuff up.
I don't know where it is, sir. You know, I really don't. I mean, I've read some reports that it could be in Syria. It might have, there were some initial thoughts it might have gotten moved to Syria, then Sudan. I don't know where it is. None of us do, I don't believe. I mean, I think they'll eventually, I mean, okay, we do know for a fact from the UN inspectors of the mid-90s, there was what, about 25,000 pounds of gallons of nerve gas or something, X amount of mustard gas, X amount, don't quote me on these numbers, and I'll find that reporter here sooner or later. But you know, I mean, it was there. Now, I don't know, I mean, I'm an engineer by trade. We got the Deseret Chemical Facility down here, and there's one in Little Rock, and we've been destroying our stuff for 30 years. You don't just pour that stuff down a drain. You don't just go dump it out in the dirt somewhere. Okay? I mean, am I right? Didn't it exist at one time? Didn't the UN say it existed? We have it. It's in this hangar. It's all bottled up. I thought they said that. Unless I really took a nap somewhere in the 90s. Okay? And, you know, but you can't just go pour that down a sewer. So where is it? And they don't, to my knowledge, there aren't any facilities in Iraq that's capable of destroying that stuff. You can't just throw it into a fire. I mean, look at the facilities we have in Arkansas and here. They're, you know, these are kind of like scientific kind of stuff to get rid of that stuff. I don't know. So to me, it's got to be there somewhere. My guess. That's Mike Cook's personal guess. That is not the Air Force position. I just don't believe. Unless they just bury these barrels in the dirt, and I'll tell you what, when it finally gets discovered, that's going to be very bad. When those barrels finally rust out one day, wherever that is, that's going to be really bad for a lot of people. If that stuff gets airborne. And then we really. I'm not a chemical munitions expert, okay, but that's what I read, and what I know when I put that stuff on my body, that chem protective gear, and why I got that mask. That mask will save you 98% of the time. The rest of it can get globbed on you from an airburst or something, but that's low threat. I mean, really, most people die from chemical weapons by breathing it. That's what you die of. You breathe in, it attacks your central nervous system, and you kind of basically go into, your central nervous system goes into overdrive, okay, until you just basically excite yourself to death. That's why we take those atropine shots. Basically slows your body down, shuts your body back down. So, I don't think I answered it, did I? But at the same time, my engineering body says that stuff is somewhere. Got no proof. Haven't read one thing about it in the intel report. But they had it once. They didn't just pour that out in the Gulf. I know the answer to the pollution. What is the answer to pollution? Pollution is delusion. Okay, dump it in the ocean. But no, you can't do that with that stuff.
Although he might.
Well, I bet we would know it. There would be millions and millions of dead things out there. That sea would be dead for years. Yes, sir.
I remember reading during the Persian Gulf War that Saddam took his Air Force. He knew he was going to get it destroyed, and he was going to take it. He took it over to Iran, another enemy. But rather him than get it destroyed. Then after all the hostilities ceased, he went back and wanted his Air Force, wanted all of his airplanes, and they said, "What airplanes?"
Oh yeah, they kept them. They kept them, absolutely kept them. But what was his alternative? If I leave them in these hangars, I'm going to lose them one at a time. By the time this is over with, we're putting 2,000-pound bombs right to the top of those concrete bunkers and destroying them. So he's got no alternative. At that time, he was pretty sure we weren't going to invade him. Probably, not likely. Okay? So he moved him to Iran in hopes of maybe getting him back one day. It's the only choice I got. Now in this war, I think he knew we were coming after him. And I said, why? I mean, the Army didn't even hardly fight in many ways. They did some. I mean, I'm going to be real careful here. A lot of young men, young ladies lost their lives. And their parents would be quite insulted if I told you right now they didn't fight very hard. The Iraqis didn't fight very hard. What are they going to do? Just take off and die? We've already been bombing those airfields. They probably just took whatever little bit they had and drug it out in the dirt. He's not a rational thinker. He has misjudged every single thing on what he thought we would do. What else? Something you have to go.
Back on NARAD, what were they going to do if there'd been a bolt out of the Blue War with Russia and the bombers started coming in with nuclear weapons, if all the interceptors were unarmed?
Well, we just didn't think it was going to happen again, sir. I mean, we've entered into START treaties with them. We've entered into that, and